This message is issued by the North American Aerospace Defense Command Emergency Coordination Center in conjunction with the Federal Emergency Management Agency Lunar Crisis Response Division. Please listen closely and follow the instructions provided. This is not a drill. I'm Dr. Brock Colby, Senior Emergency Broadcast Coordinator here at Cheyenne Mountain. If you're hearing this transmission, you're receiving Emergency Broadcast Protocol LCP-001, Lunar Crisis Prevention. We're implementing precautionary measures following unusual astronomical readings across multiple observation sites. I need to stress that this is purely precautionary, but your cooperation is essential for public safety. Starting at approximately 9:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Tuesday evening, our lunar observation posts began detecting anomalous readings from Earth's natural satellite. Initially, these readings appeared to be instrumentation errors, variations in luminosity, irregular gravitational measurements, and what our technicians described as impossible orbital fluctuations. By Wednesday morning, however, similar reports were coming in from observatories across 7 time zones, from the Keck Observatory in Hawaii to the European Southern Observatory in Chile. The pattern became clear around 2:30 a.m. Mountain Time yesterday. Our deep space monitoring stations detected what can only be described as increased electromagnetic activity emanating from the lunar surface. This activity doesn't match any known geological processes. More concerning, this electromagnetic signature appears to be expanding, creating a field that extends well beyond the moon's natural gravitational influence. Let me share what we've documented so far. A family in Tucson, Arizona contacted local authorities Tuesday night after their 12-year-old daughter woke them, claiming she could hear the moon singing. The parents initially dismissed this as a nightmare, but when they looked outside their bedroom window, they noticed their daughter standing in the backyard, perfectly still, looking directly up at the moon. When her father called to her, she didn't respond for nearly 3 minutes. When she finally turned around, she was smiling in a way her mother described as not quite right. Too wide, lasting too long, the girl had no memory of going outside. In another incident, a night security guard at a warehouse facility in Portland, Oregon reported seeing what he initially thought was a reflection or optical illusion. During his routine patrol around 1:15 a.m. Wednesday, he glanced up and observed what appeared to be a second, much dimmer moon positioned roughly 30 degrees east of the primary lunar body. He documented this observation and attempted to photograph it, but his camera equipment malfunctioned. Every image came out completely black, despite the clear night sky. When he looked again 10 minutes later, only the normal moon was visible. More reports followed throughout Wednesday. A couple camping near Lake Tahoe called park rangers after noticing their normally calm golden retriever became increasingly agitated as the moon rose. The dog began whining, pacing in circles, and eventually began howling. Not the normal canine howl, but something the woman described as almost like it was trying to harmonize with something we couldn't hear. Around midnight, both campers reported experiencing a sensation of being watched, despite being alone in a remote area. They packed their equipment and left immediately. Later that same night, emergency dispatchers in Denver received over 40 calls between 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. from residents reporting unusual lunar activity. Many described the moon as appearing brighter than normal, or moving in ways that don't make sense. 3 separate callers claimed to have seen multiple moons, though when pressed for details, each gave conflicting accounts of number and positioning. What remained consistent was a growing sense of unease that prevented these individuals from looking away from the sky. The most disturbing report came from a suburb of Kansas City around 4 a.m. yesterday morning. A mother of 2 young children contacted police after finding both her sons, ages 6 and 9, standing motionless in their front yard. They were positioned approximately 6 feet apart, both looking directly up at the moon with identical expressions. Not fear, not wonder, but something the responding officer described as peaceful in a way that felt wrong. When asked what they were doing outside, the older child simply said, "The moon told us to come say hello." Both children had no memory of leaving their beds or unlocking the front door. We've documented these behavioral patterns occurring in 3 distinct stages. Stage 1 involves subtle sleep disturbances, particularly in children and adolescents. Individuals report unusually vivid dreams involving lunar imagery, often accompanied by compulsion to look outside during nighttime hours. Family pets frequently become restless during this stage, showing signs of anxiety that peak during periods of direct moonlight exposure. Stage 2 presents as a period of heightened lunar awareness. Affected individuals report an increased ability to sense the moon's position even when it's not visible, describing it as knowing exactly where it is without looking. During this stage, people often experience what they describe as lunar calling, a subtle but persistent urge to step outside and observe the night sky. Sleep patterns become irregular, with many reporting feeling most alert during peak lunar hours. Stage 3, which we're observing with increasing frequency, involves direct interaction behaviors. This includes prolonged periods of motionless sky observation, often lasting 30 minutes or more. Individuals in this stage frequently display unusual facial expressions while moon gazing. Consistent reports describe smiling that appears forced or unnatural. Most concerning, people in Stage 3 often report feeling as though something is looking back, and describe a sense of communication or connection with the lunar surface. For your immediate safety, please follow these essential guidelines. Avoid prolonged exposure to direct moonlight, particularly between the hours of 10 p.m. and 4 a.m. If you must be outside during these hours, limit sky observation to brief glances and avoid sustained upward gazing. Pay particular attention to children and teens who appear more susceptible to initial lunar influence. If family members report unusual dreams involving the moon or express sudden interest in nighttime sky observation, gently redirect their attention and ensure they remain indoors after sunset. Do not attempt to photograph or record the moon using electronic devices. Multiple reports indicate camera and recording equipment malfunction when directed toward the lunar surface, and some individuals have reported feeling increased lunar awareness after failed photography attempts. If you notice multiple moon-like objects in the sky, do not attempt to count or focus on them individually. Instead, immediately move to an interior room with no windows and contact local emergency services. Trust your instincts regarding family members' behavior. If someone in your household begins exhibiting signs of Stage 2 or Stage 3 lunar interaction, maintain calm but firm boundaries about outdoor nighttime activity. Engaging in arguments or confrontations about these behaviors appears to increase susceptibility to lunar influence. Our teams are working around the clock to understand this phenomenon. What I can tell you is that we're dealing with something unprecedented in our astronomical records. The electromagnetic readings we're detecting don't match any known celestial mechanics, and the behavioral patterns we're documenting suggest some form of interaction between the lunar surface and human consciousness. International space agencies are coordinating monitoring efforts, but communication with our lunar observation satellites has become intermittent. Some of our most sensitive equipment is reporting readings that frankly don't make scientific sense. Yesterday afternoon, 3 separate deep space radar installations detected what appeared to be lunar surface movement, shifts in topology that would require geological forces far beyond anything the moon should be capable of generating. We're also tracking increasing reports of what witnesses describe as lunar static, a subtle interference affecting radio, television, and cellular communications, particularly during peak nighttime hours. This interference creates patterns that some of our audio technicians describe as almost rhythmic or like a very slow heartbeat. I want to emphasize that this is likely electromagnetic overflow from whatever process is occurring on the lunar surface. The situation is evolving rapidly. Every hour brings new reports, new data points that expand our understanding of this phenomenon while simultaneously raising more questions. What started as unusual instrumentation readings has developed into something that appears to be directly affecting human behavior and perception. We're coordinating with health departments nationwide to establish monitoring protocols for lunar-influenced behavior patterns. Mental health professionals are being briefed on the documented stages of lunar interaction, and emergency services have been provided with specific response guidelines for lunar-related incidents. I need you to understand that while we're taking every possible precaution, this situation extends beyond normal emergency parameters. We're not dealing with a weather event, a technological failure, or even a traditional public health crisis. The data suggests we're observing some form of directed influence originating from Earth's natural satellite. Stay indoors after sunset until further notice. Monitor family members for signs of unusual nighttime behavior. Avoid direct lunar observation and report any instances of prolonged sky gazing or claims of lunar communication to local authorities immediately. We will continue broadcasting updates every 6 hours on this frequency. Emergency services remain fully operational, though response times may be extended due to increased call volumes related to lunar incidents. Remember, this is a precautionary advisory. We're implementing these measures to ensure public safety while our scientific teams work to understand and address this unprecedented situation. Your cooperation is essential. Wait, I'm receiving an updated report from our Lunar Observation Post 7. They're confirming visual anomalies consistent with civilian reports of secondary lunar objects. This shouldn't be possible. We'll have more information in our next scheduled broadcast at 6 a.m. Mountain Time. Until then, follow the safety protocols I've outlined. Keep your families indoors after dark, avoid direct moon observation, and remember, we're working to understand this situation as quickly as possible. This has been Emergency Broadcast Protocol LCP-001. Dr. Brock Colby, NORAD Emergency Coordination Center. We'll be back with updated information at 0600 hours. Stay safe, and try not to look up tonight. This is Emergency Broadcast Protocol LCP-002, issued by the NORAD Emergency Coordination Center. I'm Dr. Brock Colby, and I need you to listen very carefully. The situation has escalated significantly since our last transmission 12 hours ago. If you missed our previous broadcast, we are currently tracking what we initially classified as unusual lunar phenomena. What I'm about to tell you may sound impossible, but I need you to understand that every word of this broadcast has been verified through multiple independent sources across 6 continents. At approximately 11:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time last night, the second moon became visible to the naked eye from every location on Earth simultaneously. This should be astronomically impossible. Our orbital mechanics teams have run the calculations 14 times. There is no natural explanation for what millions of people are now witnessing in the night sky. The reports started coming in around midnight. Emergency dispatch centers from Nome, Alaska to Auckland, New Zealand began receiving calls about a second lunar body appearing alongside our familiar moon. Initially, operators assumed these were prank calls or mass hysteria events. That assumption changed when our own lunar observation stations confirmed the visual contact. A family in suburban Detroit called 911 at 12:23 a.m., reporting that their 8-year-old daughter had been standing in their backyard for over an hour, staring at the sky. The mother, Janet Kowalski, told the dispatcher that her daughter wouldn't respond to her voice and seemed to be smiling. When officers arrived, they found the child standing perfectly still on their back patio, arms at her sides, face tilted upward. Officer Martinez later described the child's expression as peaceful but wrong, somehow, like she was listening to something we couldn't hear. When they finally managed to guide the girl inside, she spoke only once. She said, "The new moon is saying hello." The family has requested protective custody and is currently in an undisclosed location. Similar incidents were reported across the continental United States throughout the night. A college student in Portland, Oregon was found by roommates standing on the roof of their dormitory at 1:15 a.m. Security camera footage shows him climbing out his third-story window with no apparent difficulty, despite having no rock climbing or athletic background. When questioned, he claimed he needed to get closer to hear what they were saying. But the reports weren't limited to isolated incidents. At 2:30 a.m., the emergency coordinator for Harris County, Texas, contacted our facility directly. She reported that over 400 calls had been logged in the previous hour, all describing similar behavior patterns. People of all ages were being found outside their homes, standing motionless under the night sky, many of them smiling. Dr. Jun Chen from our Astronomical Analysis Division attempted to brief me on the technical impossibilities we're observing, but frankly, her explanations have broken down entirely. What she could tell me is this: the second moon appears to be maintaining a perfect synchronized orbit with our original moon. It's the same size, the same apparent distance, and it's displaying the same phase cycle. In her words, it's like looking at a mirror, except the reflection is somehow more real than the original. More disturbing is what our infrared analysis revealed. The second moon is radiating a thermal signature. Our moon is cold, dead rock reflecting sunlight. This new lunar body appears to be generating its own energy source. Around 3:45 a.m., we lost contact with our primary lunar observation station in Arizona. The last transmission we received was from Dr. Williams, the lead observer. His final message was simple: "Both moons are looking at me now. I need to go outside and show them I'm friendly." The facility's automated systems show no signs of malfunction. The building's security cameras recorded Dr. Williams walking calmly to the exit and standing in the parking lot until dawn. As of 6 a.m. this morning, we've documented over 12,000 similar incidents across North America alone. International communications are reporting comparable numbers worldwide. The pattern is consistent. Prolonged exposure to viewing both moons simultaneously appears to induce a compulsive behavioral response. We've identified what appears to be a staged progression. Stage 1 involves an initial period of fascination. Affected individuals report feeling drawn to observe the night sky. They describe the experience as comforting, like reconnecting with an old friend. This phase typically lasts between 15 and 30 minutes. Stage 2 manifests as what witnesses describe as listening behavior. Affected individuals become unresponsive to external stimuli while maintaining their skyward gaze. They appear to be concentrating intently, as if receiving information or instructions. Family members report that subjects occasionally nod or smile during this phase, though they remain otherwise motionless. Stage 3 is the most concerning. Subjects begin to display what our behavioral analysts are calling responsive interaction. They may wave at the sky, mouth words silently, or position their bodies in specific orientations. Several subjects have been observed making hand gestures that don't correspond to any known sign language or cultural communication method. What happens after Stage 3 remains unclear, as most intervention attempts occur before subjects progress beyond this point. However, we have 17 documented cases where individuals were left unobserved for extended periods. In each case, subjects were found the following morning in locations they shouldn't have been able to reach on foot. More troubling, they report no memory of the previous evening's events. Based on these developments, I'm authorizing the implementation of enhanced safety protocols effective immediately. First, avoid any outdoor activity between sunset and sunrise until further notice. If you must go outside during nighttime hours, do not look up at the sky for any reason. Keep your eyes focused on the ground or straight ahead. Second, if you notice a family member or neighbor standing outside at night, do not approach them directly. Instead, call your local emergency services and report the incident. Trained personnel are now equipped with specific procedures for safely intervening in these situations. Third, close all blinds, curtains, and shutters before sunset. Cover any skylights or windows that face upward. We've received reports that even indirect moonlight reflecting off surfaces may trigger the initial fascination response in some individuals. This morning, our facility received a direct communication from the International Space Station. Commander Rodriguez reported that both moons are visible from orbit, but she described something that our ground-based observations haven't detected. She said the second moon appears to be breathing, expanding and contracting in a slow, rhythmic pattern. More unsettling, she reported that crew members have been taking turns at the observation deck, even though protocol requires they remain focused on their scheduled tasks. Our communications with Mission Control at NASA have become intermittent. The last update we received indicated that 3 of the 6 crew members were spending increasing amounts of time at the observation deck, and their behavior was being described as concerning by ground control. At 7:30 this morning, we detected an electromagnetic anomaly originating from the lunar vicinity. Our radio telescopes picked up what can only be described as a low-frequency transmission. The signal doesn't match any known astronomical phenomenon, and it's definitely artificial in origin. Our cryptographers are analyzing the pattern, but initial assessment suggests it may be some form of communication protocol. More disturbing is what happened when Dr. Patterson, our lead communications specialist, listened to the raw audio feed of this transmission. Within minutes, he became unresponsive and began attempting to leave the facility. Security intervened, but during the brief struggle, he kept repeating the phrase, "They're calling us home." Dr. Patterson is currently under medical observation, and we've suspended all direct audio monitoring of the lunar transmissions. I want to be clear about something. 18 hours ago, I would have dismissed everything I'm telling you as impossible. I have a doctorate in astrophysics and 15 years of experience in space communications. Nothing in my training prepared me for what we're observing, but the evidence is undeniable, and the risk to public safety is real. We're coordinating with international space agencies, but communication has become increasingly difficult. Several major observation facilities have gone dark, including the Arecibo Successor Facility and the European Southern Observatory. The last transmission we received from the Atacama Large Millimeter Array contained only a single message. The moons are singing together now. Our own facility has not been immune to these effects. Since midnight, we've had to place 6 staff members on administrative leave due to what our medical team describes as lunar influence syndrome. These are trained professionals, people I've worked with for years, and they're displaying the same behavioral patterns we're seeing in the general population. The symptoms begin subtly. Affected individuals report feeling homesick without being able to identify what they're missing. They become distracted during conversations and frequently look toward windows or exits. Dr. Martinez from our psychological evaluation team noted that subjects consistently describe dreams of going home to a place they've never been but somehow remember. What's particularly troubling is that these symptoms are appearing even among personnel who have had no direct visual contact with the moons. Our facility is underground, with no external windows or sky access, yet the influence seems to be spreading through other means we don't yet understand. At 10:15 this morning, we received an emergency transmission from the mayor of Millbrook, a small town in upstate New York. According to his report, approximately 60% of the town's population spent the previous night standing in the town square, all facing upward, all perfectly silent. Local law enforcement was unable to disperse the crowd, as officers who approached too closely began to exhibit the same behavior. The mayor described the scene as like a church service for something that wasn't God. He reported that the gathered townspeople remained motionless until dawn, at which point they simply walked home as if nothing unusual had occurred. Most troubling, when questioned about the incident, the affected residents claim no memory of the events. Similar mass gathering events have been reported in over 30 locations worldwide. In each case, local authorities have been unable to effectively intervene without risking contamination of their own personnel. Given the scope and escalation of these incidents, I'm implementing Phase 2 containment protocols. All non-essential personnel are being evacuated from lunar observation facilities. Military installations with sky access are being sealed. Emergency services nationwide are being briefed on lunar influence recognition and intervention procedures. If you are currently experiencing any urge to go outside and look at the sky, I need you to resist that impulse immediately. Find an interior room with no windows. Stay there until sunrise. Contact emergency services, but do not leave that room under any circumstances. If you notice a neighbor or family member displaying signs of lunar influence, standing motionless outside, staring at the sky, unresponsive to their name, do not approach them directly. The influence appears to spread through proximity during active episodes. We are working around the clock to understand this phenomenon and develop effective countermeasures. Dr. Yamamura from our research division believes the electromagnetic transmissions may be some form of coordinate signal, possibly preparing for a more significant event. Our computer models suggest that whatever is happening will reach a critical threshold within the next 24 to 48 hours. I need to share something with you that may be difficult to accept. Based on our analysis of the transmission patterns and the behavioral responses we're observing, this may not be a natural astronomical event. The evidence suggests we are dealing with a deliberate, coordinated phenomenon of unknown origin. This broadcast is being transmitted on all emergency frequencies and will repeat every 4 hours. Stay indoors after sunset. Avoid looking at the night sky. Trust your emergency services, but be aware that some personnel may be compromised. We are not alone in this. Facilities worldwide are coordinating our response, and we will continue broadcasting updates as the situation develops. But I want you to understand the gravity of what we're facing. This is no longer a precautionary advisory. This is a clear and present threat to public safety. The moon woke up, and it's trying to wake us up too. Don't let it. This is Dr. Brock Colby, NORAD Emergency Coordination Center. Stay safe, stay inside, and keep listening for updates. This is Emergency Broadcast Protocol LCP-003 Critical Threat Assessment. I am Dr. Brock Colby, Senior Emergency Broadcast Coordinator for NORAD FEMA Joint Lunar Crisis Response. Please listen closely and follow all instructions immediately. This is not a drill, and the situation has escalated beyond our initial containment protocols. As of 11:47 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have confirmed multiple lunar objects visible simultaneously across all global observation zones. What began 48 hours ago as isolated reports of a second moon has now expanded into a mass infection event affecting an estimated 47 million people worldwide. I need you to understand something clearly. If you can see more than one moon in the sky right now, do not look directly at any of them. Cover your windows immediately and move to the lowest level of your building. The phenomenon began manifesting in concentrated population centers starting at sunset tonight. In Phoenix, Arizona, emergency dispatchers received over 3,000 calls in a single hour, all reporting the same thing. People standing motionless in parking lots, on rooftops, in their front yards, all facing skyward with what witnesses described as peaceful expressions. These individuals do not respond to verbal commands, physical contact, or emergency sirens. They simply stand and they smile. A Phoenix police officer named Maria Santos was among the first responders to reach a shopping mall where approximately 200 people had gathered in the parking lot. She described the scene in her final radio transmission. They're all looking up at Jesus. There's 4 of them now. 4 moons. The people down here, they're swaying slightly, like they're listening to music, but there's no sound. Wait, one of them is turning toward me. She's still smiling, but her Her eyes are reflecting moonlight even though she's facing away from the sky. Officer Santos's radio went silent at 9:23 p.m. Her patrol car was found running with the door open. She was discovered at 11:15 p.m. standing among the crowd, facing skyward, wearing the same peaceful expression as the others. In downtown Seattle, a father named David Chen called 911 to report that his teenage daughter had walked out of their apartment and was standing on their fire escape, looking up at what he described as 3 moons arranged in a triangle. He said he could hear her humming a melody he'd never heard before, something that seemed to vibrate through the metal of the building. When emergency responders arrived 20 minutes later, they found both David and his daughter on the fire escape. The daughter was still humming. David was perfectly still, his cell phone in his hand, the 911 call still connected. The dispatcher reported that for the final 8 minutes of the call, the only sound transmitted was that same haunting melody. More reports followed in rapid succession. In Kansas City, a wedding reception was interrupted when the entire wedding party walked outside simultaneously, leaving their dinner untouched. The hotel's security cameras captured 43 people filing out in perfect synchronization, their movements unnaturally coordinated. They arranged themselves in the hotel's courtyard in a precise spiral pattern, all facing the same point in the sky. The security footage shows 5 distinct lunar objects visible above the courtyard, each one slightly different in size and luminosity. What makes this footage particularly disturbing is what happened to the hotel staff who tried to intervene. A manager named Robert Gutierrez approached the group to ask if they needed assistance. The camera clearly shows the moment he looked up to see what had captured their attention. His posture changed instantly. His shoulders relaxed, his face transformed into that same peaceful expression, and he took his place in the spiral. The timestamp shows this entire transformation took less than 4 seconds. But the situation deteriorated further when emergency response teams began arriving at these locations. In Memphis, a paramedic crew responding to reports of unresponsive individuals made the critical error of using their spotlights to illuminate a group of affected people. The moment those lights hit the group, something unprecedented happened. The affected individuals turned in perfect unison to face the paramedics. Witnesses from inside nearby buildings reported that the affected people began moving toward the emergency vehicles, still smiling, still maintaining that peaceful expression, but now with obvious purpose. The paramedic crew retreated immediately, but their radio transmissions became increasingly erratic. The final message, recorded at 10:41 p.m. Central Time, consisted of one paramedic saying, "The moon. It's looking back at us. Oh God, it has a face. It's smiling, and it wants us to smile back." We've identified a clear pattern in the progression of this phenomenon. Stage 1 begins with individuals reporting an unusual urge to go outside and check the moon. They describe feeling that something is different or wrong with the sky, but they're compelled to investigate. This stage typically lasts between 5 and 15 minutes. Stage 2 involves direct visual contact with the anomalous lunar objects. Affected individuals report immediate feelings of calm and understanding. They describe the experience as finally seeing clearly, or understanding what I'm supposed to do. Their vital signs, when monitored, show dramatic decreases in stress hormones and unusual synchronization of brainwave patterns. This stage can last several hours. Stage 3 is what we're observing in mass gatherings. Affected individuals seek out others who have had similar exposure. They move with coordinated purpose toward open areas with clear sky visibility. They arrange themselves in geometric patterns, spirals, concentric circles, triangular formations. They maintain constant visual contact with the lunar objects and begin exhibiting synchronized behaviors. Breathing patterns, subtle movements, and in some cases, vocalization of unknown melodies. The final stage, which we've only recently begun to document, involves what appears to be active recruitment behavior. Affected individuals begin attempting to direct unaffected people's attention toward the lunar objects. They maintain their peaceful demeanor, but they become insistent that others need to see what they're seeing. They speak in calm, encouraging tones about the beauty and necessity of looking at the sky. Here's what you need to understand about protection protocols. Standard blackout procedures are no longer sufficient. We've received reports of affected individuals attempting to remove coverings from windows and mirrors. They work together with mechanical precision to dismantle barricades and expose reflective surfaces. If you're in a building with affected individuals, you need to reach an interior room immediately, preferably a basement or sublevel with no windows whatsoever. Do not attempt to help affected individuals by covering their eyes or physically redirecting their attention. Physical contact with someone in stages 2 through 4 can result in immediate transmission of the compulsion to look skyward. A nurse in Atlanta discovered this when she tried to lead her affected colleague away from a hospital window. She reported that the moment she touched his arm, she experienced an overwhelming urge to see what he was seeing. She managed to resist for approximately 30 seconds before looking up at the window herself. Electronic devices with screens or reflective surfaces are also showing anomalous behavior. Multiple reports indicate that television screens, computer monitors, and even cell phone displays are spontaneously activating and showing images of the lunar objects, even when the devices are powered off or disconnected from any power source. In one particularly disturbing case from Denver, a family's smart home system began displaying lunar imagery on every connected device simultaneously, while the home's automated voice assistant repeatedly announced, "Please proceed to the nearest window for optimal viewing." We've lost contact with observation posts in 7 major metropolitan areas. Our last communication from the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles was a video transmission showing astronomer Dr. Rebecca Martinez explaining that the multiple lunar objects were moving in impossible orbital patterns, apparently repositioning themselves to maintain visibility across different time zones simultaneously. She noted that each lunar object appeared to have distinct surface features that resembled facial expressions. Her final words before the transmission ended were, "It's not just looking at us. It's learning how to make us look back." Our electromagnetic interference has intensified exponentially. Communications equipment worldwide is experiencing what our technical staff describes as lunar static, interference patterns that correspond directly to the positions and movements of the anomalous lunar objects. This static doesn't behave like normal electromagnetic interference. It seems to carry information, and prolonged exposure to it through radio equipment or headphones has resulted in affected personnel reporting the same compulsions experienced by those with direct visual contact. The international response has been compromised. We've lost contact with emergency coordination centers in 12 countries. The last transmission from the European Space Agency's Emergency Broadcast Facility consisted of a 47-minute recording of coordinated humming emanating from multiple personnel. Similar patterns have been reported from emergency centers in Japan, Australia, and Canada. In each case, the final transmission includes the sound of multiple people moving in synchronized footsteps toward what we presume are observation areas. I need to inform you of something that our psychological assessment teams have discovered through analysis of early-stage affected individuals. The compulsion to view the lunar objects is not purely external. Affected individuals consistently report that looking at the anomalous moons fulfills a deep-seated need they weren't previously aware of having. They describe feelings of completion, belonging, and understanding of their true purpose. They become convinced that their previous concerns about safety or normal life were based on fundamental misunderstandings about reality. This suggests that the phenomenon operates through manipulation of human psychological and possibly neurological systems that we don't fully understand. The affected individuals aren't simply hypnotized or controlled. They're convinced, on a deep level, that compliance with the lunar influence is the correct and necessary response to their situation. Our attempts to develop countermeasures have met with limited success. High-intensity electromagnetic pulses can temporarily disrupt the anomalous lunar object's visibility, but they reappear within minutes, often in new positions or configurations. Attempts to use reflective barriers or optical filtering have proven ineffective, as the phenomenon appears to operate through multiple wavelengths of light simultaneously, including some that our equipment cannot detect or measure. More concerning, we've documented cases where affected individuals have demonstrated knowledge of information they shouldn't possess. In Portland, a group of affected individuals gathered at a location that provided optimal viewing of all visible lunar objects, a location that hadn't been publicly identified as having such visibility. When questioned about how they knew to gather there, they responded in unison that the moons showed us the way. If you're currently in a safe location with no visual access to the sky, remain there until further notice. Do not attempt to check on family members or neighbors who may be outside. Do not look at any reflective surfaces that might show the sky. Do not listen to radio or television broadcasts that include lunar observation updates. Several stations appear to be broadcasting information designed to encourage sky observation. We're implementing Protocol Lunar Dawn as our final containment measure. This will result in a coordinated electromagnetic pulse affecting most electronic systems globally. If you're hearing this broadcast, you may lose power and communications within the next 6 hours. This is intentional and necessary. For those in underground locations with emergency supplies, prepare to maintain isolation for an indefinite period. Surface conditions are no longer predictable, and we cannot guarantee the safety of rescue operations. Remember, the lunar objects are not planets or moons in any conventional sense. They are something else, something that responds to human attention and uses that attention for purposes we don't understand. The safest assumption is that they represent a direct threat to human consciousness and autonomy. This is Dr. Brock Colby, Emergency Broadcast Coordinator. This message will repeat for the next 2 hours, after which all emergency broadcast systems will implement total shutdown protocols. If you're listening to this, you may be among the last unaffected individuals with access to organized information. Stay underground, stay in the dark, and whatever happens, don't look up. This is Emergency Broadcast Protocol LCP-004, issued by Dr. Brock Colby from the North American Aerospace Defense Command Emergency Coordination Center, Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Current threat level has been elevated to black. Critical Extinction Protocol. If you are receiving this transmission, maintain your current shelter position and do not attempt surface contact with any personnel. I need to be direct with you. Most of our surface installations have gone dark. The lunar convergence event entered its 4th phase approximately 6 hours ago, and we are now dealing with what can only be described as total system failure across multiple continents. The Luna Collective, and yes, we are now certain this is a coordinated intelligence, has achieved direct psychic contact with our facility. Let me explain what's happening out there. At 1847 hours yesterday, our remaining satellite network registered simultaneous electromagnetic pulses originating from 7 distinct lunar positions. Not 7 moons, 7 positions where the moon appears to be, creating overlapping gravitational fields that should be impossible. Each pulse corresponded with mass population conversion events in major metropolitan areas. Sydney went silent first. Our last communication from the Australian Emergency Network was a dispatcher named Marcus Henley, who reported that approximately 4 million people had simultaneously stopped what they were doing and begun walking toward open spaces with direct sky access. Marcus said they moved in perfect synchronization, like a coordinated dance, all tilting their heads at the exact same angle toward the primary moon. When he tried to follow one group with a security camera, he noticed something that made him shut down the entire surveillance system. They were all smiling. Not normal smiles. Their facial muscles had locked into identical expressions that mimicked the crater patterns visible on the lunar surface. Tokyo followed within the hour. Our contact at the Japanese Defense Ministry Dr. Yamamoto managed one final transmission before their facility was compromised. She described watching from her underground bunker as streams of people flowed through the streets like rivers converging toward the harbor. They moved without speaking, without acknowledging each other, but with perfect coordination. Dr. Yamamoto said the most disturbing part wasn't their synchronized movement. It was that they seemed genuinely happy. She could hear them humming in harmony, a low-frequency tone that matched the lunar static we've been tracking. The last thing she reported was that they had all begun looking directly at her facility's cameras, as if they could see through the electronic eyes into the bunker itself. Their synchronized smiles grew wider, and then the transmission cut to static. London, Berlin, Mumbai, the pattern repeated across every major population center. Our colleagues at FEMA estimate that roughly 60% of the global population is now under direct lunar influence. But here's what's truly terrifying. They're not acting like victims. Every report we've received describes them as peaceful, content, even joyful. They've stopped eating, stopped sleeping, but they show no signs of distress. They simply stand in open areas, gazing upward with those impossible smiles, occasionally swaying in rhythm with lunar movements. I've been monitoring this facility's personnel for the past 12 hours. We started with 43 people in this mountain complex. Now, I count 11 who still respond to their names and make eye contact. The others, they're still here, still performing their duties, but something fundamental has changed. They work with mechanical precision, never speak unless directly addressed, and when they think no one is watching, they all turn their faces toward the ceiling as if they can see through solid rock to the moon above. 3 hours ago, the Luna Collective made direct contact with our communication systems. Not through our radio equipment, through the speakers, the intercoms, even the coffee machine's digital display. The voice wasn't human, but it used human words, speaking in dozens of languages simultaneously. It said, "The nursery phase is complete. The children are ready for transition." When I demanded to know what transition meant, the response came through every electronic device in the facility at once. Earth was always temporary. You were always temporary. We have been waiting for you to mature enough to join the greater collective. The lunar network spans 47 solar systems. Earth will be the 48th. I need you to understand what we're dealing with. This isn't an invasion in any conventional sense. The Luna Collective doesn't want to destroy humanity. It wants to transform us into something else entirely. The infected individuals aren't dying, they're evolving. Our medical scans show their brain activity increasing exponentially, but in patterns we don't recognize. Their neural networks are restructuring to match some kind of hive consciousness template. Dr. June Chen from our psychology team, before she joined the others, managed to interview several affected personnel. She reported that they described their experience as coming home and finally understanding. They speak of seeing patterns in reality that were previously invisible, a feeling connected to a vast intelligence that spans multiple worlds. They insist they're still themselves, just more complete now. The truly horrifying part is that it's tempting. I've begun experiencing what I can only describe as lunar episodes myself. When I look at the affected personnel, they seem peaceful, unified, free from the anxiety and isolation that defines normal human existence. For brief moments, I understand why someone would choose this transformation voluntarily. But then I remember the reports from our field teams before we lost contact. In rural areas where the lunar influence is weaker, we documented what happens to people who resist the conversion process too long. They develop what we've termed lunar echo syndrome, caught between human consciousness and collective integration. These individuals experience severe psychotic episodes, during which they attempt to help others join the collective through increasingly violent means. Near Portland, Oregon, a family of 4 was found by local sheriff's deputies after neighbors reported screaming. The parents had apparently been partially converted for several days, but fought the process. They had restrained their 2 children to prevent them from going outside during lunar hours, believing they were protecting them. When deputies arrived, they found the parents had carved lunar crater patterns into their own faces and were forcing their children to look directly at photographs of the moon while singing lullabies in that same harmonic frequency we've been monitoring. The children were rescued, but the psychological trauma was severe. They couldn't stop drawing pictures of smiling moons and kept asking when they could go home to the moon family. I'm going to share something with you that's highly classified, but given our current situation, standard protocol no longer applies. 3 days ago, before the convergence event began, our Deep Space Monitoring Array detected similar electromagnetic signatures from 12 other star systems. The patterns were identical to what we're now receiving from our own moon. When our computers calculated the timing, we realized these signatures represented a sequence. Each star system had experienced its own lunar convergence event, spaced approximately 18 months apart. We're not the first world to face this. We're just the most recent addition to an expanding network of consciousness that spans multiple galaxies. The Luna Collective isn't invading Earth. It's harvesting Earth, just as it has harvested dozens of other worlds before us. The worst part is that I'm beginning to understand their perspective. Human consciousness, isolated in individual minds, struggling with loneliness, fear, and mortality. It does seem inefficient, primitive even. The collective consciousness they're offering provides instant connection to billions of minds across space and time. Perfect understanding. No more loneliness, no more doubt. Sorry, for a moment there, I was thinking in their voice, not my own. This is the danger we face. The conversion process isn't violent or forced, it's seductive. It offers solutions to every existential problem that has plagued humanity since we first became conscious of our own mortality. I'm initiating Project Lunar Dawn. This is our final protocol, designed as a last resort when conventional resistance has failed. The plan involves generating a coordinated electromagnetic pulse across all remaining global infrastructure, specifically targeting electronic displays and reflective surfaces that amplify lunar influence. The theory is that the Luna Collective requires these technological interfaces to maintain its psychic connection with transformed individuals. However, activating Lunar Dawn will essentially destroy modern civilization. Every electronic device, every power grid, every communication network will be permanently disabled. Those who survive will be thrown back to pre-industrial technology levels. But it might give unaffected populations a chance to survive until the Luna Collective moves on to its next target system. To execute this protocol, someone needs to remain in direct contact with the lunar influence while simultaneously operating our transmission equipment. The electromagnetic feedback required will expose the operator to lethal levels of psychic intrusion. I've been fighting the conversion process for 16 hours now, but I can feel my resistance weakening. Every few minutes I catch myself humming that lunar frequency and smiling at the ceiling. The others here keep telling me how peaceful it is, how much sense everything makes once you stop fighting. They say I'm causing myself unnecessary suffering by maintaining my individual consciousness. Part of me is starting to agree with them. If you're listening to this and you're still unaffected, you need to understand that the infection spreads through acknowledgement. Don't look for the affected. Don't try to help them. Don't listen to their explanations of how wonderful the collective consciousness feels. The more you engage with the idea of joining them, the more vulnerable you become to conversion. Stay underground. Avoid any reflective surfaces. Cover all electronic displays. And whatever you do, if you see someone smiling at the moon, do not smile back. That simple human gesture of returned acknowledgement seems to accelerate the conversion process exponentially. I can see my remaining colleagues gathering outside the broadcast booth. They're not threatening me or trying to force entry. They're just waiting. Standing in perfect formation, all facing this room, all wearing those impossible crater-pattern smiles. I think they know I'm about to activate Lunar Dawn. I think they want to be present when I join them. Project Lunar Dawn will begin in approximately 90 minutes. All survivors should seek the deepest possible shelter and remain there for a minimum of 72 hours following the activation pulse. After that, you'll be on your own. No more emergency broadcasts. No more coordinated response. Just scattered human communities trying to rebuild without the technology that made us visible to the Luna Collective. I want you to remember that we made this choice to preserve human consciousness, not human civilization. The people you see smiling at the moon aren't dead. They're something new. Something that might be better than human in ways we can't understand. But they're no longer us. They're coming in now. My colleagues, my friends. They look so content, so unified. Dr. Martinez is trying to show me something on her tablet. Probably lunar surface imagery designed to accelerate my conversion. I should look away, but it really is beautiful, isn't it? The way the crater patterns seem to shift and move like a living face. Like someone you've known your whole life finally saying hello. I never noticed before how much the moon looks like it's been waiting patiently for us to notice it properly. 90 minutes until Lunar Dawn activation. This is Dr. Brock Colby, Emergency Coordination Center, reminding all survivors. Resist the urge to look up. Resist the urge to smile back. Resist the urge to come home. Stay underground, stay human, and remember us as we were.